I'm making a generalization, but there really is a lot of opportunity to be useless, and that's new.
It's a really simple meme. Both halves have a wojak. But the top half, there's this huge, fantastic farmhouse. And underneath it is a modern thing that says a bunk bed in San Francisco. Every single thing about this meme is stupid.
Your apartment in New York City is just the place to sleep at night. It's not your entire life. Your life is the city.
It is less real than any Marvel movie. I believe in the goddamn Infinity Stones to a greater degree than I believe anything in this meme.
The people that I see struggling, they're upset about things that they're just wrong about. You think your life is terrible because of a thing that you just misunderstand entirely. Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. It is not TCU's Day. We're recording on a very special Wednesday. Matt and I are pretty busy this week, but we're squeezing in a podcast anyway because we want to talk about some conceptual things here. We did that last week. We're doing that this week, maybe next week as well. I'm Kevin Lieber. Of course, as always, with me is Matthew Tabor.
Yeah, and we're going to start out with a couple quick nods. First one is to Dan the Latch, who has finished his journey in film school. Congratulations on your graduation. Now life is just bad. you now that you've finished this, you have to figure out what to do, and it's terrible. And in the same with editor Ben, who did not graduate, but at least he finished this year. He finished last night, and that was part of it too, because yesterday he was finishing up finals for the semester and all that stuff. We had this weird kind of perfect storm of activity on Tuesday where we thought, you know what, we can push this to Wednesday, but it is an era of new beginnings for so many of us.
That's right. And this week we want to talk about another kind of conceptual thing. I hope that people are cool with that we're not talking just about YouTube stuff. We're just talking about life in general.
But it's all related.
Is that okay? Is it all right to discuss life and how to think?
Yeah. But all of the stuff that we talk about with actually making artistic things and making videos and YouTube and sustainability with it and all of that, believe it or not, it stems from, living life. Before we hit record on this, we were just talking about this, about kind of who's going to be replaced by AI and who's not. And the people who are going to make it are the ones who are interesting enough to make it. It's all the questions we ask at the end of an interview. What makes an interesting person? Well, if you don't have an answer to that question, or your life is not at all aligned with any answer we've ever gotten on this podcast, probably AI is coming for you. So no, it's all related though. And how you think about life is how it shows up in what you create. You can do that very well. You can do it very originally, where you can be extremely derivative and terrible.
Well, and not only that, I think that we're at a weird place, at least maybe just I'm at a weird place, that I'm noticing a lot of people's thought processes are in a place in which it will be really hard for them to be successful. So
I agree.
I think that a paradigm shift really needs to occur. And if no one's going to talk about the paradigm shift, then it's going to be really hard for that to occur. So I think that we are in a good place, at least I hope that you and I are in a good place, to maybe poke and prod at this paradigm shift and see if other people have noticed it, or if they haven't, if this is useful at all to them. But one of the big paradigm shifts that I think needs to occur with how to think about the world, how to think about yourself and your place in it, your motivations and the things that are demotivating to you, comes back to the fact that I don't think that a lot of people are conscious and recognize the moment that we're in. allows a lot of people at scale, I think for the first time in human history, no, I am confident that it's the first time in human history that huge swaths of people can live pretty comfortably being totally useless to other people. This is a new thing.
Yes.
And I think that because of the way humans adapt so quickly, we get so used to the temperature of the water, even as it's raising to a boil, that we just always think that things are the way they are and they've always been that way. And now I'm going to use that as my sort of catapult to criticize the way things are. That really,
I think it's valid. Yeah.
Yeah, like that makes sense that people feel that way. If what you know is all you've ever known and that's how you're making your judgments, well, what else can we expect? But I think that you and I need to lend a little bit more context to the way things are today compared to how they were before, and really not, this is important to me to say, not in like a, back in my day, we used to walk uphill both ways, 10 feet and 4 feet of snow with newspaper wrapped around our feet. Like that's not like a useful conversation. I think what is useful to realize though, is that we're at a moment in which not everyone, again, I'm making a generalization, but large swaths of people, a lot of people have to consciously decide to be useful, because there really is a lot of opportunity to be useless. And that's new.
That is new. The fact that you can kind of get by doing nothing of value for other people is a really new phenomenon. It's something that developed really in the last probably 150 years, very, very slowly, and not with everybody either. Now it has hit everybody, and it's easy to just kind of think of kids where what is your responsibility during the day? Well, you'll go to school. Okay, that is most of the day taken care of, where you do not have to provide value to anybody. And you're not really expected to because you're a kid. Then you go home though, and what are you doing to sustain the family and sustain the household? And now the expectations are like, maybe you wash the dishes after dinner. Maybe you take out the trash. It's not much is my point. And maybe on the weekend, your parents ask you to do something of substance, mow the lawn, clean the garage. I don't know. But it's not a big deal, and nothing really goes wrong if you don't do it, okay? Like the lawn growing another inch, maybe it's not good aesthetically, but it doesn't actually change anybody's life.
The stakes are low.
Really, really low.
Yeah.
So you don't have a whole lot of responsibility in terms of providing value to anybody else. And when you do, it's low stakes value. Well, other than working a job and taking care of yourself and maybe taking care of a family, you don't have to do anything else anymore. You know, you can pay your bills, pay your rent, and just watch Netflix and play video games in every moment of your free time. And that's completely and totally fine. No one is going to, arrest you for it. You might not have, an amazing social life. You may have a little more trouble finding a relationship. I don't know. It depends, but just because you're not doing as much. But it's not the worst thing in the world. You've met those really minimum obligations, and then it's up to you. And you can skate by making the choice to not be useful to anybody and not provide anything of value to anybody else. That's okay now. You could not get away with that 150 years ago. You literally could not do it. There was too much stuff to do, and there were too many dependencies on other people. So you had to do things for them so that they would do things for you. That's just not the case anymore. It just isn't. And that changes fundamentally what daily and weekly and yearly and decadely life is about.
Back in the day, you would get shamed for this behavior, right?
Yes.
You would get shamed even in our lifetimes, Matt. In when we were kids, there was a lot of shaming, and there's some of this still exists. Okay, it's not like all of this is gone, but it was the prevalent reaction to someone, sitting around all weekend and watching TV to shame that person as being a lazy couch potato, like do nothing.
Yeah.
And then that, extended to video games, or you're rotting your brain, you're just playing video games all day, blah, 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 blah. Like that was the default reaction. There's still some of that on the fringes, of course. Yes, that still exists. But it's really a fringe reaction now. The standard now is, like, let me just obsess over Marvel movies all day and just watch and analyze them, or play video games or stream them, or whatever it is. Like that's the normative response now. And that's what's so different. And that's what I want to talk about and kind of bring to light, shine a light on, is like, this is new. This is a different thing. Like what we take for granted now of kind of spending all your time making TikToks and watching TikTok, like that would be unheard of for most of human history. And that extends to so many of the things that people spend their quote unquote free time on now. It's like all free time compared to what life typically was like for, 100,000 years.
Yes. This is, and I would go well before that. I would it's even the case with animals, right? Like animals that are in groups, they do have jobs. Bees have jobs. There's no bee that sits there buzzing, jerking its stinger and just gets by, so like even really simple animals have this blend of providing value. And this is the critical difference that I think everybody needs to understand, is that in the past, you always had to provide some kind of value. If you didn't, you wouldn't really get a whole lot. You would be shamed for not providing value. And obviously, we're talking about able-bodied people who can do things, right? Not somebody who, for example, has like a severe chronic illness. Nobody was stringing them up because they couldn't work 12-hour days. No, we're talking about normal, able-bodied, able-minded, etc. people with the means to provide value who choose not to. And what Kevin is saying here is that for the first time, you can get away with primarily, if not wholly, being 100% a receiver of value and a 0% provider of value. You can do that. You can do that as a kid. You can do that as a young adult. You can even kind of do it as a full adult. I know too many of them. That is an extremely, extremely new phenomenon that is a result of all sorts of different things from, and this is not a value judgment when I say it, but the growth of the concept of the welfare state globally, meaning a government that does provide things for you. Such as universal healthcare in the UK is a really good example, where no matter what you do with your life, whether you work hard or you don't have to worry about receiving healthcare. It's your right as a citizen. That is not quite what we have in the US. So that's a big change mentally, right? That you will be taken care of. You will receive things of very serious value to you. Healthcare is quite valuable. That was not really the case in, 1850. That wasn't the case in 1930. It was something that after World War II was a priority for most places globally. Well, now throw in technology having made virtually everything 1,000 times easier than it ever was. And you don't have to work so hard. You don't have to spend time doing much of anything you don't want to do. So you can just sit there and be a consumer of value that other people have created and get away with it.
Yeah, I just thought like such an interesting example. So for a long time, if you wanted a shirt, okay, you would have to make the shirt. You would have to
yes
get the go ahead.
No. I'm gonna ask you to do this a certain way. You need a shirt. I don't know what happened to the old one. You know what, Kevin? You got so ripped that you couldn't fit in it, and you picked up a log and threw it over your shoulder, and it just tore your shirt wide open. That's what's happened to you.
Mm-hmm. Happens all the time.
You need a new shirt.
Yeah.
So can you do the process from the earliest part of I need a shirt and take you through to finally having a shirt? And I'm going to interrupt you now and again if I think of something that you've glossed over.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I could do that, so I'll try. I don't know if you might not be growing the cotton or shearing the wool, but you might be.
Yeah.
So let's assume that you're not. Well, then you have to trade.
That's reasonable.
You'd probably trade with some farmer who does that. So you trade some of your corn for some wool. Okay, now you have the wool. You have to spin that into some sort of weavable thread, and then you have to cross stitch or whatever, crochet that thread into a shirt. And now you have a shirt. Yeah. All of those steps take a really long time.
Yes. So let's say you could buy the cloth. So we'll make that part easier. Buy the raw cloth. You would have to go to the place that sold the cloth. And if you did not live in a city, then you are taking a horse there. I think I will go into what that entails a little bit later with a different example, but it's going to be a many hours process to go to town and talk to, go to the general store and buy the fabric. You're probably going to be limited. It's not really what you want. You're going to get something quite basic. If they have it in stock, which is a crapshoot, you pay a lot more for it then than we would pay for the equivalent now. If you did the actual cost comparison between the two eras, you're paying a hell of a lot more for that material back then than you would be now.
The real dollars.
The real dollars. That's right. Then you get to spend you put in the order and wait for a shipment from New York or Boston or Philadelphia or Chicago. And if it's a little more modern, like from the Sears catalog, you're waiting weeks to get this fabric in. And then you have to go and pick it up again, which is hours, and go home, which is hours. And then you have to make the pattern, which is not easy to do. If anybody has ever done any quilting or sewing, which I did a fair bit of quilting as a youth. I quilted with my mom a lot, and she taught me how to sew and how to quilt. Patterns are really hard as hell. They're really tough. Like, you don't have a lot of room for error in clothing, or else it doesn't look right and it's not comfortable. It just isn't. But in this shirt case, you would almost certainly have to figure out every detail of that pattern yourself. And then you have to cut it, and then you have to sew it by hand, and hopefully you're good at all of those things. If you're not, you have a really crappy shirt. Mm-hmm. This is just a shockingly complex process with a million steps that depend on other people, on your acquired skill, on somebody having been able to teach you that skill. If you don't have it, you have to find a neighbor or a friend or something who will do it. It is so insanely and ridiculously complex, and you cannot navigate a thing like that as a passive receiver of value. You have to actively give value to all of those people to get that step done. It's really easy to think of buying the fabric. The value you're giving is however much money it costs. But all those other things, you cannot get away with being a taker on that. You have to give to be able to take. And this is to get a plain shirt that you can go out and work in because one of yours ripped. We just arbitrarily chose that one mundane example.
Well, really,
it's not a complex
really ripped
item. Yeah.
Until ripped beyond repair. Because what you would actually do, if we're being serious, is you'd repair the ripped shirt. If you need a new one, that shirt is like pretty screwed up. But let's.
But they get threadbare so fast because you don't have very many of them, and you usually work physically.
Right.
In all weather conditions too. And so old clothes that like normal people had, There's a reason why you go on eBay, you go to an auction, you can buy fancy dresses. You can buy old vintage suits because they don't get worn every day. And when they probably got worn like 3 times, and when they were, nobody wore them hard. Well, you can't go and find like a railroad man's work shirt from 1880 because the thing got obliterated. It was threadbare in like 6 weeks.
Right.
Like the.
So let's go beyond that.
You're rustling my jimmies here, Kevin.
Well, good. That's the point. So there's your old timey shirt process that eventually evolved into being able to buy a shirt off a rack at some sort of larger general store, right? Like general stores got bigger. They started to stock more items. So you could go to that general store that's bigger, and now you can just buy a shirt. And it probably is not your size, but maybe it's close enough. You tailor it. You have to know how to tailor things. So now you're doing that too, which is a thing to make it fit. All right, fine. The next step is like eventually getting to specialized clothing stores. So now you're driving to, or you have a car now and you can drive to a specialized clothing store and all they sell is clothing. You could buy it there. And they probably do have your size because it's mass produced at a level in which they can carry a whole bunch of inventory for different sized people of probably the same looking shirt. Then you have malls. And now you can just go to one gigantic building that's called the mall, and you'll have a whole bunch of clothing stores that serve a variety of people and a variety of tastes, and a variety of demographics. If you're this age, you shop at this store. If you're a little older and you're looking for this style, you shop at that store. Department stores are huge. Okay. Now that's where you and I, that's the world you and I grew up in, was like the mall era of buying a shirt. Okay. And
right. When I needed clothes, and I can be really specific about this in a way that some people might understand. And the time you bought clothes is once a year, you would go school shopping in August. You would buy some clothes for the new school year, right? And that meant one trip for me to Utica, which is an hour away. And the reason people might know Utica is if you watch The Office, which they set in Scranton because Scranton blows. The Dunder Mifflin's sister company or sister facility, another Dunder Mifflin location, they set in Utica because that is equally shitty.
It's worse.
Utica is worse. And like Utica's worse. And The Simpsons made fun of Utica. I mean, but that was the option. You had to go to Utica to hit a few stores that had clothes, otherwise there was a closer Kmart and that's kind of it. But,
Going to the mall was an event. That was a thing. It was like, wow, we're going to the mall. And that's so exciting because you get to go to all these different stores and see all this stuff. And that's actually an event in and of itself when you're 10 years old. It's like, cool, we're going to go to the mall and I'm going to get a pretzel and it's going to be awesome.
And I want to throw something in here because I was just talking to somebody about it a week ago. When I was young, my allowance was 50 cents a week. And I had to buy my own Little Caesars at the Little Caesars kiosk in Kmart. And I know Boss Threads knows this and appreciates this one. Then you could get the Little Caesars meal deal for like $3.99 or $2.99 or something like that. And so it would take me 8, 9, 10 weeks to save up the 50 cents at a time to be able to go and get one Little Caesars meal deal at Kmart.
That's awesome.
Anyway, go on. I just had to throw that vignette in.
I know what a treat that was to each bite into that cheap
bread.
Cheap food was worth 50 cents a bite. So that's our era. We grew up and went to the mall. Now everybody knows what era we're in now. I don't have to explain it. You go online, you look at your phone, you scroll through an infinite amount of stores and options and, price ranges and people doing it like like custom shops, and you can make your own shirt that has your own face on it that just says fart in huge letters. Like you can just do whatever you want instantly from your phone, and someone will give it to you at your door. You don't have to go anywhere and do anything. All you have to do is have the $20 or whatever it costs, and then and it takes 9 seconds, and you go back to doing whatever else it was that you were doing. That's it.
Yes. Yep. And the only utility you need to make that happen is the money for it. And that is a really good system, right? So we're not, well, I don't know. Maybe Kevin is. I don't know. I'm not saying that's a bad system. It is amazing that it is so simple. You don't have to barter. You don't have to grow cucumbers because you're good at growing cucumbers and then search the world for somebody who is willing to trade a Kevin's face fart shirt in exchange for 28 cucumbers. Like, it's going to be really hard.
It's going to be really hard to find that person.
To match that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do a thing and I get money for that. And then I give that money to you for the fart shirt because you've decided that you want a certain amount of my money more than you want that shirt. And you're willing to make the exchange at the same time that I've decided that I want the shirt more than I want that amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
We both get happier when we make that swap. This is an incredible, incredible system. And as Kevin just explained with this, it is virtually instant. You have an idea, you poke your fingers on a device for 30 seconds, and you get what you want. That is fantastic. But it means that the only sort of value you're expected to give is that currency. So that's amazing in a lot of ways, but that's also a very new system. You can sit in your apartment all day long. Now you can work from home to a degree that you never could in the past. You can, provide a little value on the computer with your job and then just sit there and do whatever you want to do in the off hours. And that's fine. You can do that until the end of time, until you expire and somebody smells you. The mailman slips something through the little thing in the door and smells a dead body, and somebody comes and gets you, and they're like, oh well, this is the end for him. And nobody between the two ends of that story is judging you. If you want to live that way, you certainly can.
Until they see the piles of fart shirts with my face on it, then the judgment is rained down upon you.
Well, you know what? They throw them away. It's like if you watch a show like Hoarders and they deal with the stuff there, they'll take like a snow shovel and just shovel the stuff in somebody's living room into garbage bags and throw it in a dumpster. All those things are disposable because nobody needs any of those things. Nobody needs the fart shirt. If you had 2 shirts to work in and there's a fart shirt, you might be like, well, okay, I could use a third garment. This is useful to me. I could take a used garment in my life and you would grab it. But yeah, it's completely different. And this is incredibly new. We haven't really adjusted how we go about life to compensate for the goods and the bads of all of this.
No, and I'm not disparaging the system. The system is amazing. I love that I could do that. Awesome. I love that I could order that fart shirt in 9 seconds. That's a miracle. It's incredible. It's so cool.
I don't know what you've been sipping, but you've got it all wrong. It's time to commit to the Leaf. We've embraced the smoothness and surprising pick-me-up that tea provides. I literally drink it all day long, nearly a gallon a day, and it powers me through research, script writing, and forums on websites that I refuse to name here. But we don't drink normie NPC tea. We drink cultured and refined anime tea from the Dragon's Treasure. Kevin still likes the gunpowder green called Space Cowboy, and I've sampled nearly 40 Dragon's Treasure teas at this point. Lately, I've been slamming black teas like Kentucky Bourbon and Liquefied Berserk Despair. Scottish Breakfast is deep and peaty, and I smooth it over with Sebastian's Morning Earl Grey, which Has the best vanilla cream taste I think I've ever had in a cup. Give me a pot of that with a hot meatball sub from Sal's Pizza and Brooks Barbecue Chicken to wash down my last meal on death row. I highly recommend the sampler packs. You'll want to try everything just like I did. I literally have not had one tea that I wouldn't be happy to reorder. The Dragon's Wings membership fuels new tea experimentation, and the Tea of the Month Club provides a regularly scheduled surprise. And when you order from the Dragon's Treasure using code CREATE, you'll get 10% off your order. That's 10% off using the code CREATE at thedragonstreasure.com. The link's in the description.
But, okay, so two things. So the first thing is to say, and this is something I think of a lot, that I want other people to think of more, is that you can discuss a thing without raining judgment upon it. Like, we have this weird conflation that occurs, I see all the time, in which just because someone is discussing something, all of a sudden other people are inferring their intentions around discussing it. It's like, okay, just because I'm talking about something isn't me infusing a judgment that you're now upset about. Like, that's in your head.
Yeah.
And I think more people need to step back and just observe and be able to talk about things without falling into this like binary judgment trap of, oh, they're talking about this because they really like it, or they're talking about this because they really hate it. It's like, well, how about just talking about it because it's worth thinking about? How about just thinking?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
You know, I know that came up a little bit when we've talked about things with physical health. And it's like, no, we're not ripping anybody who's not in peak physical condition. You can just plain talk about the thing because there's interesting stuff surrounding it, you know, and I do the best I can to inject myself because I am thinking about the stuff in terms of myself. And I think it's a valid question to say, in the year 2000, my daily activity was such that I stayed at like 150 pounds. And now 25 years later, I live in such a way that it's 185. What is different between those two periods of life and what I'm doing with my days that has such a different result? And that doesn't mean I think you suck if you're not ripped. It doesn't mean that I think that somebody who has more weight than the BMI scale says they should is a bad person, or that I judge them harshly. No, that's not it at all. It's what Kevin said. You talk about the thing. It's valid to talk about the thing.
Yeah, thinking does not inherently come with judgment. I think that's
a good way to put it.
That is something that I don't see very often, and no one seems to mention it. At least I just don't see it happening.
Yeah.
People always conflate thinking with a judgment. They can be divorced, right. Okay? And I think the way that you and I talk about things is divorced almost always, unless, you know, I am particularly talking about hating the beach, or you are particularly, right. You know, expressing a judgment of something. Thinking through something is free of that.
Yeah, the phrase that used to be used for this is disinterested inquiry. And that it's really important that the word is disinterested as opposed to uninterested. There are a lot of things I'm not interested in. I am uninterested in a shocking number of topics that other people like. Virtually anything on my trending tab on Twitter, I am uninterested in. Disinterested means that we can talk about something neutrally. We're not injecting value judgments. We're not even necessarily trying to get anything out of it. It's like, no, we're asking questions about something, thinking about the answers, and that is the activity. That's the disinterested inquiry. And that is something that very few people even want to do anymore, let alone do it, because it can be boring. When you do, because you don't have, for lack of a better word, an agenda for talking about something, that means you very well may get absolutely nowhere. It means you may not come up with anything exciting, interesting, new, whatever. That makes for bad shows. Imagine a primetime news show that was committed to disinterested inquiry. Well, it would be a little bit of a slog sometimes. A podcast without a point, 100 episodes of that, 85 of them are going to be something you're just not going to choose to listen to. So, yeah, it's not a great fit for entertainment, but it's important. It's what everything that matters rests on. You have to think about a thing in a disinterested way to really get anything useful out of it.
Otherwise, you're blinded by something. You're blinded by some sort of bias. Otherwise, that's what I think is important by about it is to, not have that agenda, not be blinded by some sort of conclusion that you've already established ahead of time that you're just trying to rationalize yourself towards. What is the point of that? The point of that probably is some sort of ulterior motive. Well, there's no ulterior motive here other than exploration and inquiry. I like disinterested inquiry. That's great. But there is a point. So I want to bring it back to the overall point, which is to contextualize the moment, contextualize yourself within the moment. And also, I think it is super important to discuss the foundational elements of creating value for other people, because it will make you a lot less bitter and upset overall about your life. And the reason that I say that is because I see people all the time really angry and ranting about things like having to have a job in order to pay for food or in order to pay, their rent or whatever it is. Like, they're really upset at this concept of having to work in order to survive. And the misalignment that's so like bald face that's occurring in their brains occurs when they're comparing essentially past life to present life and making this preposterous suggestion that people in the past, before industrialization and specialization and jobs, and essentially just kind of sat around and lived for free all day. And this came to a head most recently. I think that's what catalyzed this podcast in this meme that I think that I sent to you because I knew it would make you mad, which is something that I like to do. Because it's fun for me. It's fun for me.
It's so unfair though, because I don't have similar weapons. Like, there's not a long list of things that I know that I can really annoy the hell out of you with.
Oh man, I don't know. That might say more about me than it does about you, but I think that
bad Nirvana takes. Like, really bad takes on certain music. I know that I can do those, but they don't come up nearly as often as memes like this.
No. And a lot of that is ironic. There was a bad take that really upset me recently, that the person deleted the tweet. I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but a person made some sort of tweet about how Nirvana ruined metal, like ruined heavy metal. And their example was that like Pantera was really popular until Pantera is a very, very famous metal band. They were like on top of the world until Nirvana came along with their like mopey heroin music and ruined it. And
Pantera wasn't on top of the world.
Oh my God. Within 2 seconds, people were like, this person clearly was not alive. There's no way they were alive in the 90s. Like, this person must have been like 14 or something. And they have no idea, because the timeline on that does not work out at all. Basically, Kurt Cobain was dead by the time Pantera like really hit sort of mainstream recognition. But that's the type of thing that annoyed me. But again, it was probably some like 14-year-old who just loved Pantera and thinks Nirvana sucks and came up with some stupid tweet about it. And everybody jumped on him about it. So, but let's go back to the other tweet that I annoyed you with. I won't recreate it off the top of my head. I know you have it pulled up. So
it's right here.
Yeah. So
I'm going to pop it in the episode chat again.
So why don't you describe it, and then hopefully just kind of go off on a tirade about how wrong and stupid it is.
Well, first let me pop this in, and there it is. So we were all Looking at the same thing here. So it's a really simple meme where the top half of it has both halves have a wojak. But the top half, there's this huge, fantastic farmhouse. And it says, a peasant's house, Black Forest, so Germany, 1890. And there's lots of wood neatly stacked outside. It's multiple stories. There's a porch on it, several windows. And it says, how could people have lived like this back then? And it says rent $0. And underneath it is a modern thing that says a bunk bed in San Francisco, 2023. And it's this cramped little rotten thing. The bunk bed, rent $1,200. And the wojak is saying, so cozy and affordable. So the implication here is that life was amazing and much, much better in the Black Forest of 1890 with this zero rent house. Every single thing about this meme is stupid. It is idiotic. There is no validity of any kind in anything that this meme is communicating. Kevin, where should I start with this?
I would love to start with rent $0 on this house, and on this gigantic house from 1890.
It's huge. Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? Like it's like a rural wooden mansion. It's awesome. But there is property tax. There is taxation literally everywhere and for a long time, thousands of years. Thousands of years. You know the word immunity that we think like immune system? Immunity originally did not mean like freedom from the consequences of something or freedom from something. It literally, and I mean literally, referred to freedom from taxation. That's why immune is in it, sort of similar to words for money,
like municipality.
Yeah. All of these things are related, but that's how old taxation is. Virtually all surviving records from ancient civilization are about tax collecting. You think about the famous stories of Jesus having a bit of trouble with the tax collectors, anyway.
Isn't that why writing was invented? I mean,
Yes.
Writing itself was, from what I understand, invented for tax collecting, for keeping records
Pretty much.
of like what somebody owned and what they owe.
Yes.
That's why
right.
writing exists.
Yeah, every government has to have money of some kind, whether it is to simply be funneled straight into an army, like, thousands of years ago it could have been, or it's modern. So was there a rent to a landlord for the person, the family who lived in this house? No, it's unlikely. This is such a big one that it's not the kind of thing where anybody would be a tenant. Whoever lived in this house owned that house. So technically, is the rent $0? Yes, you're not paying a landlord. However, you are paying those property taxes. But before that, how do you get this house? The effort and money that went into building this house is so much greater than any of the idiots with this meme realize. Now, they're glossing over it because the point of the meme is to take a dump on the state of housing in San Francisco, and you're paying $1,200 for this really crummy bed that's in like a shared room. That sucks. So when you think about the top, though, oh my God. So the wood alone, I don't quite know how to describe what it's like to manipulate wood. And this sounds really weird, but two things that you need to realize if you haven't done a lot of outside things, but you've seen them on TV and you think you know how they work. Two things are massive, massive lies. One is that holes are easy to dig. They are in some parts of the world where it's like super loose, kind of sandyish soil, where you put the shovel in and you stomp on it and you get this big shovel full and you can, the mob guy can dig a grave and throw somebody in. Okay, holes blow. Holes are hard as hell to dig in most parts of the world. That's a lie. The second one is chopping wood. There's a major difference between chopping softwoods like pine and hardwoods like cherry and oak, maple. You do not raise the axe and have it come down and cleanly cut through the wood and get this really satisfying like chunk as you do it. That's horse shit. That's a lie. That's not how nature works at all. It's hard as balls. So consider, that's chopping wood. Consider what it's like to cut and mill a board that is suitable to make a house out of, whether it's on the outside or whether it's flooring. This is incredibly difficult. You're looking at saws that are very, very, very slow. A lot of two-man saws. They have to be big enough to mill a log into a board. Wood has to be seasoned or dried. Now, what you buy at Home Depot has been kiln dried. You know, they throw it into a giant kiln and get it to the humidity that it needs to be, and then it's not going to change when you use it. When you cut wood and it's green, freshly cut, it bends as it dries out. Well, you can't put it up and then just have the thing like bend into a U. Like, no, you have to wait a long time, unless you have a kiln. You have to wait for this to naturally reach an equilibrium with the air. That is one board. And if you're at all concerned about aesthetics, the amount of planing that you have to put in by hand is slow, very slow, and it's very hard to do, and it's physically taxing. So we've talked about one board here. And by the way, log cabins, which you see in a lot of old movies, they're such a fantastic way to play it with building a house because they aren't subject to many of these changes, and you're not putting the work in to refine board by board the thing. You know, you're making like a very basic cut on two sides of a log and then filling in the gaps with mud, chinking the gaps. It's something that anybody can kind of do. So anyway, back to this house. There's a lot of wood that made this house. And it's fine stuff. And if you have a family and a plot of land and you intend for that family to work that plot of land for centuries, which I am absolutely sure was the case with this house, it's literally the case with the house I'm in. I know what that's like to have a handmade house that somebody intended to have their own family stay in for many, many generations. You can take the time to do all of this. You're not hiring anybody to do it. You need help with certain things like framing. That's not something that one person is usually able to do. Even then, a series of ropes is insane to be able to lift things and hold them and position them. You know, you can still see the Amish do this when they build houses without any electricity, without any mechanized equipment. The skill required with this is bonkers. The nails, not screws, the nails that went into putting this house together had to be pounded one by one. They had to be cut by a blacksmith. You could get the skill to do that without being a proper blacksmith, but it's a hell of a lot of nails, and you're making those one by one. They are sort of angular squares at the top, and they taper down. So they don't hold in really well. And as wood moves over time, the nails come out and the boards come out. All of my floors are nailed down with those old cut nails, hand cut by a blacksmith nails, and they come up. I wear moccasins every day around my house, in part because if I just had bare socks, the nails that are coming out of the floor tears holes in them. So that's the state of a house like this. And there's no alternative in 1890 in the Black Forest of Germany to do any better than this. This is it. We don't know what the inside of this house looks like. We don't even get a good shot at the roof. The windows stink because all windows stunk in 1890. They weren't any good. However, the heating system in this house is, and by all the firewood cut on the outside, you have to assume there's one stove. It just goes where it goes. The heat does. It's not channeled anywhere. It's not blown anywhere. It's again a case of the house is reaching the equilibrium of whatever heat source is pumping out. That means it's hot as balls close to that heat source. Now, for a time when I was growing up, my bedroom was next to the wood stove in the cellar. In the winter, that was really awesome, but it would be like 85 down there or 90, so that the normal house would be 68, as the heat drifted up. So it's not even that comfortable in all of the house. But again, this is just the way it works. This is the limitations of the time. The cooking in there, there's unlikely to be any plumbing at this time, and I see no evidence that there would be indoor plumbing here. So we see the front of the house. In the back of the house, guess what? That's where you're taking a dump in the rotten outhouse back there that stinks of just feces and piss in a puddle, in a big hole that blows directly into your house when the wind happens to be blowing in that direction through your windows that are insulated very well. So if you take a particularly horrible dump, there's a very good chance that that wafts into the lower floor of your house for like 6 hours. So even the most basic thing with cooking, back to that plumbing thing, like any water you need, you're going to get it. You're slowly bringing it up to temperature. With cooking food, you are not setting a dial for anything. You are putting wood in a stove or an oven and trying to get the temperature of that fire to the temperature that you need to, let's say, bake bread. And if you watch any baking shows on TV, you know that temperature matters a lot. You can't be off by 25 degrees and get the result. It's going to be undercooked, overcooked, whatever, and you have to adjust the amount of time to compensate for it. And at no time can you measure the actual temperature of that oven. So it's taking forever. And when you're done, you don't just turn it off. The fire has to go down. And I mean, that's when you open it all up and then let the heat out in the rest of the house. If it is summer, though, and you don't want heat in the house, you don't have a choice. It's going to be hot in the kitchen if you're cooking because the heat isn't very well contained. Everything is bad about this house. It's awesome. I wish I lived in a house that was as magnificent as this. I like that kind of life. It is hard as shit. Everything takes forever. And there is to the side what looks like sort of like a half barn. There's a door too, which I think would go into a cold place where, like a root cellar, where some food would be stored. But on the other side, at some point here, there has to be transportation. And this is something that I don't think enough people appreciate, how extremely time-consuming it is to deal with horses. You have to, you don't have the horse like locked up all the time so that it's convenient for you to go and grab it. It's got to run around and eat and exercise and be healthy. So you have to catch the horse. Usually it's really easy. Horses come when they're called, especially if you have an apple or something, but still it takes time. You got to get the horse. Then you have to put it on the hitching post. And then you have to put a very complex, and this is if we're talking about a wagon, not a saddle. Saddling still is a process. It takes a while, but you're putting that one thing on the horse. If you've got a wagon, putting a harness on the horse is very complex. There are a lot of little pieces that have to be in exactly the right place because they have to work. They have to bear the load of whatever's being pulled without breaking. And they also have to be comfortable for the horse. You can't have sores on a horse from it being improperly saddled or harnessed. That's bad for the horse. And, you can't do that. So it's got to be pretty perfect. Then you have to hook the wagon to the harness. This entire thing on the best day is an hour-long process. And I say best day because I want to contrast it with when there's a foot of snow on the ground, when it is dumping rain, when it is nighttime and you can't see. Even your oil lamp, your hurricane lantern is not very good, or before the sun has risen. It's hard to do these intricate things when it's very cold, and the clothes you don't have gloves with thinsulate in them to keep your fingers warm. It's brutally difficult and quite near impossible as a one-person thing. So you're going to put two people in this. When you finally get this hooked and done, you have to go somewhere. And the horse is not galloping. It's not even trotting. It's going a few miles an hour. So if you're 5 miles from a town, that's 2 hours each way just in the wagon. As you're on the wagon, the suspension on it is primitive. At best, it's going to be sort of like an iron band that has some give and bounce to it. It's not like modern springs in your car that really are shock absorbers. So this thing is pounding your ass every single step and bump in the road, which is not paved well. You have wheels that are not soft. They're not rubber. They're not inflated. So you're getting jackhammered in the ass by your wagon after you've put an hour into, on the best day, harnessing the horse and being on your way. And then you do get to the town and, I don't know, whatever you needed there, whether it's the fabric, whether it's needing something fixed. If it's fixed, if it's one of those things, you're dropping it off and the person will get to it when they get to it. And you've got to make another trip in to pick it up. But everything you do is going to be dependent on the horse and the oxen and whatever, because you cannot live in this house. You can be warm in this house kind of indefinitely, and you can raise a fair bit of food. But all the tools and stuff, you can't do anything about that. You're going to have to go somewhere or depend on people to come to you. And peddlers did that. You know, peddlers had wagons with goods that they sold and they would go door to door. But you can't schedule that. You don't know when it's coming. You don't know what they're going to have when they do come. So if you live in this house, you are 100% dependent on virtually everything around you. With the saws, they have to be sharpened frequently. Cutting wood with a dull saw is the worst thing ever. It is so slow and it is so difficult. People think that you can, just kind of chop wood and do stuff with it. Well, I have enough trouble with chainsaws and very sharp tools. It's hard as balls that way. I can't even imagine what it was like in the Black Forest in 1890. But this is the big lie. And the best part about this, to me mentally, and I'm finally going to wrap it up, Kevin, the funniest part to me about this, not necessarily the best, is that the people who are complaining about this are almost exclusively on the left-wing side of the spectrum, right? Where do you think this photo and the idealization of this photo in the late 19th century of the Black Forest, how do you think that happened? Was it perhaps the glorification of rural life in Germany in the 1870s and 1880s and then beyond that eventually became a hallmark of Nazi propaganda and part of the Lebensraum movement to be able to have this land and this type of agrarian life further into Europe, further east? So you idiots, you utter dolts who know nothing about the image that you're looking at are literally falling for Nazi propaganda 130 years after the photograph was taken. That's how stupid you are. You understand absolutely nothing about this photo. And the meme, the only thing that's valid in it is that it's not cool to rent a bunk bed in San Francisco for $1,200. I agree with that. I don't want to do that at all, and that's not a life I want to live. Is the alternative the Black Forest farmhouse where every second of your life is pain and there's no relief for pain because it's 1890 and aspirin hasn't been invented yet? Aspirin, which isn't even very good. There's literally no pain relief of any kind other than opiates that, if you can even afford laudanum at this time, is going to knock you out like crazy, turn you into a near vegetable, and give you a dependence on a drug. It's horrible. You are in constant pain. Your whole life is shit. And it doesn't mean that you suffer. You may enjoy all of this. Like I said, I live in a place that is not entirely dissimilar in terms of what it requires of you and what the physical toll is on you. I'm not unhappy. I am not miserable. I don't suffer. There is a great deal of pain, though, because there is constant effort, and you never have a choice to ignore that effort. If you are on a farm, for example, you have to do the farm things when the farm things need to be done. You don't do it when it's convenient for you. If you have to harvest a crop, you have to harvest it when you can, because if a frost comes the next day, your crop is ruined and your year is gone and you starve. So you are in constant pain because you are in constant effort. And you may be very, very happy doing that, but it's hard. And you have to have a certain mindset to do it. So this is what you need to think about when you see a meme like this. Be like, oh, people had all this free time. They didn't have to pay rent. Life was so good. Why can't we return to this? Well, that was the dream that the Nazis were selling. It is a fucking nightmare to you, and you don't even realize it. You would not be able to do any of the things that living in this house required. It would break you. It would kill you physically because you would get hurt doing it, and you would die of sepsis. Everything in this image sucks, and you don't even know it. Okay, I'm done. We want to help you make something and mean something. And we say that phrase all the time because when you're making something and you know it means something, even if it's just to you, that's when you feel pretty good about what you're creating. The support for the Create Unknown in recent weeks has been incredible. Animators, artists, musicians, YouTubers, aspiring filmmakers, comedians, it is crazy how talented everybody in this community is. Consider joining the Create Unknown Patreon. Every dollar that comes through goes straight into the podcast and its community. That means more highlights videos. It means a big Minecraft project that's on the way. And eventually we'd like to manufacture custom piss bottles so you never have to leave your battle station. And being a patron unlocks participation in all of our live recordings. You've seen the roster of guests we've had. Having access to their minds is a unique opportunity. You can go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown or click the link that's in the description. Every little bit helps, and your support means absolutely everything to us. Patreon.com/thecreateunknown, links in the description. We appreciate you, Space Cowboys.
Amazingly, that was such a long, detailed rant, and you didn't even cover so many of the things that I thought about the meme, which is there's so much here.
Add to this.
So very simply, I'll add to the fact that there's a tremendous difference between what's going on in these two images in terms of the lifestyle. One, the Black Forest lifestyle is your entire life is building this house. It's going to take
maintaining it.
Your whole life is this house. And while you're building this house, which is taking your entire life, and perhaps certainly will be handed down to your kids to also continue to build and maintain this house. Every day is a struggle to figure out what crap you're eating. It's a struggle to figure out like why your kid is sick from cholera or has some sort of infection that you can't cure because there's penicillin hasn't been invented yet. Okay.
You know what's on the other side of the house past the shitter? Yeah. About 100 feet past that is the graveyard where everybody you have ever known and loved is buried.
Yeah.
So when you go outside and walk out in the back, that's what you see. And that is something the people who built this house, Kevin, I don't know if you've noticed this. On the corner near me, there's a cemetery with some trees around it. Those are the people that built this house. That's the whole family that built this house. That's what you do. You work on this place, and then you die on the place, and they drag you kind of far enough away to be reasonable, but not so far that it's actually a hassle. And then those graves sit as a specter looming over the future of that house and its inhabitants forever.
Yeah, so you have 10 kids, 11 kids, half of them die before they reach the age of 5. So you have, like 5 or 6 children buried in the backyard who didn't make it.
Yep.
Meanwhile, and also like while you're doing this, like insanely endless Sisyphean labor to build this place, you can't run down to Starbucks when you want. That doesn't exist.
There's no relief.
No. You can't just go get a sub down at Jimmy John's. That's not a thing. Okay.
There's no relief of any kind. And we talked about this before, like at some point we were saying the only time off you had was on Sunday when you very likely had social obligations surrounding church, if we're talking about Black Forest in 1890. So even Even your day off was mostly spoken for. There's no relief. There's no fun. There's no ease. You're not going to buy food. You're not going to see a play. I mean, this is such a shocking luxury that maybe you do something like that once a year. And guess what? The play probably blows. It's not like you're going to the finest theaters in Berlin. Like, no, you're seeing some shitty production that happens to go through your rotten local village.
Okay, so meanwhile, fast forward to 2023, San Francisco, with again the caveat, like you said, that like I agree, like I don't want to live on top of other strangers in some bunk bed paying $1,200 a month rent in San Francisco. I don't want to do that either. But if these beds are being rented, then someone does. If nobody wanted to, then it would be empty. And then the rent would be zero because no one would be willing to pay to live there. If someone's willing to pay to live there, then they're willing to pay to live there. But the difference between, but they're just sleeping there is my point. Like if anyone listening to this lives in or has lived in a place like New York City, your apartment in New York City is just the place to sleep at night. Okay.
Yeah.
What you're doing in New York,
it's a safe place.
You just return there to sleep if you're not crashing at somebody else's place. It's not your entire life. Your life is the city. Your life is being out in New York, whether that's going to work or meeting up with friends or doing any number of things that people live in New York City for. At the end of the night, when you're done at 3:00 in the morning doing New York City things, going to some barcade or seeing some backyard wrestling show or some concert or some drag show or any number of the millions of things you do in New York City, you just go there to crash. It has a completely different function regardless of the amount of, and that's the other thing I wanted to get back to. Okay. Is at the end of the day, it's also just ignoring the function of money and value. It's like,
yes, it is.
What does the $1,200 mean? Where do you get that $1,200? How is that generated? And how is that different than living in 1890 and spending your entire life and your the next generation's life building this house? They could not be possibly more different. Fundamentally, tangentially, and even on the surface level. There's nothing similar about these two things at all, except for both somehow being umbrellaed and nestled under the term of domicile, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a total misunderstanding of everything involved. Every single thing involved is being understood incorrectly. And it's not like a right-wrong thing so much as reality and not reality. When I say incorrectly, I say you are interpreting this in a way that has nothing to do with reality. And when, I did pop the link in the episode chat so you can read, and this was very popular meme, 2,000 likes, whatever. I mean, it's not the biggest thing on the internet, but it's not like it was a one-off thing nobody paid attention to. 200,000 displays now that Twitter shows that. So you can read through the comments, which are overwhelmingly supportive of the meme and this concept that, life is terrible now. And it was amazing back then. And let me see. Okay. Here's one that says that cabin, heart, simpler life, better life. Let's see what their bio is. Jesus Christ, Kevin. Let me read this bio to you. Artist. Space engineer in a past life, student of philosophy, music lover, passionate about helping Earth and humans, space cowgirl, science, tech, the future. And she looks at this and thinks it's a simpler life and a better life.
I didn't notice history buff. History buff wasn't on there.
Yeah, it was not on there. We're not going to talk about how insane it is to call this place a cabin, because it most certainly is not a cabin. That's like calling a smart car a monster truck, or a monster truck a smart car, rather. Anyway, that cabin, simpler life, better life. Okay, I'm typing that. Every single thing you are thinking about this meme is demonstrably wrong. Reply. Okay, we'll see if she replies to that. But it's true. Every single thing that this person thinks about what they're looking at is horseshit fantasy. It is less real than any Marvel movie. Marvel movies are much more real. I believe in the goddamn Infinity Stones to a greater degree than I believe anything in this meme. But she is totally bought in. She is a warrior for humanity and the human condition, and looks at this and says, well, this is much simpler and better. Okay, let's see, bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it pays off.
Well, okay. All right, so there's still two more things. We're talking about this more than I thought, but there's so much here. There's still two things I really want to say. One is just the misunderstanding of what money is. Barely anyone understands what money is. They just don't. I suppose we just never really talk about it. We don't teach it in schools. No one really talks about what money is. There's just this non-understanding of money. It's just the number that I have in my bank account, or it's the amount that, someone is willing to pay me to do a job. And it's like, well, it gets back to this value thing. It's like, which we started the podcast with. It's like, you get paid dependent upon the value that you are generating for someone else. And there's an exchange that occurs between the person who is seeking a certain type of value and you as the person who is offering to provide that type of value. Whether that's being a barber, you'll say, hey, I am willing to cut your disgusting hair for
your greasy wisps.
I will cut your greasy wisps and make them look nice for $25 of your dollars. And you say, hey, well, I work at this job where they pay me $15 so an hour. So, I have to work for about an hour and a half to be able to provide enough value from my boss to afford to exchange that value I provided for the barber's value of cutting my hair nicely the way that I want it.
Yep.
And this extends to everything. So when you're saying, why do you pay $1,200 for this San Francisco apartment? It's like, okay, first the question is, do you understand what $1,200 is? How long does it take you to make $1,200? What do you have to do to generate that $1,200?
Yep.
Let's just start there.
And when you've gotten that answer, then it's a question of what are you willing to trade that for? And is that trade worth it to you? It's strange to break it down this kind of scientifically, but it's important. That's actually what's happening. What's happening is all of these little forces coming together to be a decision. And it's one that you're happy with or one that you're not. And if you're not happy with it, then you need to find one that is a fit for you and that makes you happy. The focus though on all of this working based on how much value you're providing others, this is the most politically neutral, religiously neutral, intellectually, philosophically neutral concept that I can think of in terms of it doesn't matter who you are at all on the planet. If you are always thinking in terms of what value am I providing somebody else? Is there somebody who actually values that thing? You're going to be okay. There is a place for you. You're going to be fine. After that, it's a question of making those decisions about trade-offs. But if you're constantly focused on what value you're providing other people instead of sitting around just plain being a passive receiver of value for the most part, a consumer of value, if you're always thinking about providing value of some kind, your life is fine. At that point, you're only subject to things you can't control. Like providing value does not prevent you from getting cancer. It doesn't prevent somebody from running a red light and smashing into you. Life gets in the way. You are subject to the forces of reality that you can't control. Everything else that you can control is pretty much covered completely by your commitment to providing value. That's it. That's all there is to it. That's the mindset that is going to guarantee that you're going to be okay. And it doesn't even matter what the conditions of the world are like. It can be the most god awful depression economically, and there's still going to be value to be provided. It's going to be very different. People have different things to trade. Different things are going to be valuable to you. But the concept of, well, I need to provide value regardless of what the situation is, whether I'm with my family at Disneyland and I need to be, my mood has to be such that they're having a good time and I actually improve their time. Well, that's providing value, isn't it? Or whether it's I don't know, trading cucumbers for a fart shirt. It's all the same concept, though, is that what am I doing of value for somebody else? And if you focus on that and consider all these things, some of the things that I said, all of the stuff that Kevin said, you've got it. Like that's everything. You figured out all of it. And then it's a question of just where do you go with it?
So yeah, the question of this podcast is like, can people start to recognize how any of this works? That would be really a nice place to start. Let me break down.
Yes,
let me break down the $1,200. I'm sticking to this meme because I think it illustrates a lot. It illustrates a lot.
Okay.
Let me break down. Like I would love to ask this question of the person who created the meme. Okay, so say you have a job in an office answering emails, okay? You're like an executive assistant, which is a common job probably in San Francisco. And let's say, I believe that like kind of typically your bills and I think largely your rent is usually like kind of half your paycheck. Is that right? Am I right with that? In like a major city, kind of half your paycheck is going to go to your rent.
So the U.S. government actually has a definition of this.
Okay.
Where housing is, and oh boy, I don't know if I can get the percentage right, but housing is considered not affordable if it takes up something like more than 30% of your income. So affordable housing is defined as being a lesser percentage than that. And we know, like you're saying, half, it's not uncommon to have half of your money go to, rent and utilities.
Okay. So let's just say for the sake of simplicity and the sake of this argument and to make it clean, let's say that you spent that half is spent on your rent. That $1,200 is half of the money you make a month on the rent of that bunk bed and maybe your health insurance or some other like cost of living sort of goods. Okay. Which means that you have another $1,200 to just kind of blow on whatever you want. Starbucks and Jimmy John subs, going to the movies, like buying that new Zelda game, buying the new video game, buying some new shoes that like make you feel good about yourself or getting your hair done. Any number of the things that are luxuries that you really want to do.
$15,000 a year. I want to point out that amounts to $15,000 a year, roughly.
To blow on things that make you feel good about yourself, things that you love, your hobbies, your interests, spending time with friends, kind of whatever it is. So the question to the the meme maker is a really simple one. Okay, here are your options as laid out by you in this meme. These are your options. Okay, this is what you are suggesting. You are suggesting that you would rather that it's better to spend your full lifetime arduously building a house from scratch, plank by plank, which will literally just take up every moment of 6 days a week, aside from the one day maybe you're like forced to take off of that your religion is making you take off Sundays, is telling you can't work on Sundays. Or would you rather answer emails 5 days a week for 40 hours in probably a
comfortable chair,
a gorgeous office building
There's almost certainly like a perpetual basket of snacks that never ends.
With clean bathrooms and air conditioning. Yeah. Oh, yes. Clean bathrooms that you don't have to clean because there's probably some sort of janitorial service that cleans up after you in the office too, takes your little tiny office garbage out at the end of every day. They do all of this stuff for you. All you have to do is show up and answer emails for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you get this bunk bed thing that you don't want to sleep on, plus ostensibly any other luxury item that you want the rest of the month, within some sort of reasons. You can't buy a Rolex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But most of the pleasures of the world are accessible to you. I think that's a fine way to put it.
And you're
If
pretty
not
comfortable the
immediately,
whole
then-
time.
Yeah. You're not threatened at all.
Right. Those are so once again, like sort of repose the question that way and see which one that this person would choose. And it's not even close. It's not even close. And here's the other thing that I really wanted to say before I forget about this whole thing. Okay. Because I've also seen this. I've seen this all the time with this argument, and I'm so tired of it. It's that almost, I would say pretty much anyone making the complaint or making the argument likely can go do that. You can go do that. This is not illegal. It's not impossible. Like the old ways. Do you want to? Are you really suggesting that you want to live in the old ways, which is like growing your own food and building your own house? Go do that. You can go do that. Just go do that. Yep. You will not be arrested for that. Like what? Nothing is preventing you from living that life. So even in this false dichotomy that you're creating, this just illusion that you're upset over. You're upset over an illusion that you can actually do something about if you truly believed in it, which you don't.
Yes. No. It is, you are taking something that is fantasy, and then you're pretending that the reality of it, which is being able to go and do it, is also fantasy. So the thing that is real, you are pretending is not, and the thing that you could just do, you're pretending is fake.
Right.
Like this is just mentally wrong on every level. Like nothing is lining up the way it should. And I want to throw out how offensive I think memes like this are too, because you described the kind of the worst case scenario with this, with income on this $1,200 bunk bed, where you've got somebody who's making, $2,400 a month in the end. That's really low for San Francisco, right? There's a very good chance that they're making a bit more than that. But that's such a narrow take to look at this, say, oh, $1,200, no, that's terrible. This is a little bit like, people are starving, kids are starving in wherever, eat your dinner. But do you know what percentage of the world would just like murder 1,000 puppies to be able to have that bunk bed situation? A significant percentage of the world, this life that you are complaining about would be a massive upgrade in terms of health, safety, dependability,
comfort,
their daily comfort. Yeah. Their daily anxieties would be just erased. You're telling me something, let's say somebody who's like 20th percentile, so not at the top, nearest the bottom, 20th percentile in Odessa in Ukraine right now, wants not to be in the bunk bed situation? I'm not even pulling from like traditionally troubled and low income places like Somalia, for example. We don't even have to pull there. Let's take a city in the lesser developed parts of Europe, for example, the Bulgarias, the Romanias. These are not bad places at all. They're great, and I love them. But per capita income is not shockingly high. And for a significant number of people in those places, those things, the comfort, the dependence, the being able to depend on quality of life, the access to just safe, decent elements that affect their health. Oh man, would they love to have an option like the $1,200 bunk bed in San Francisco. That is something that anybody looking at this meme has to recognize, that these things are relative. And Kevin, you and I, we don't want the bunk bed situation for so many reasons. I don't want to be in that spot. But that's also because I have alternatives that I like much better. That spot would not be an upgrade for me. There are times in my life, a lot of times actually, where that would have been a hell of an upgrade. And it would have given me tremendous opportunities that I didn't have. And I wasn't even in a bad spot. I wasn't even in, a bombed out Syria. I simply had opportunities. It's just insane to me that the people celebrating this kind of thing aren't taking any of these things into account, whether it's what the pictures mean or what other people looking at the pictures might see differently, how they might interpret it. It's shocking, absolutely shocking, and it just shows a total misunderstanding of every element of the human condition that is involved in this whole discussion, this whole thought, everything, every string you pull on with this meme, they're misunderstanding all of it. And it's tragic. It's bad for them, and it's bad for everybody else because they want the world to work based on their misunderstandings. So if it were just being wrong in their own head, I wouldn't care much. That's fine. But when that kind of mentality dominates the discussion, you are going in a very, very bad direction. And there's always somebody who wants to grab on to that fantasy. It's not inappropriate to say that you had these movements that romanticized a certain way of life, like in Germany. We've had it in the U.S. as well, and there are people who do it now. A lot of people romanticize country life. Half the country songs romanticize country life. Some of them are honest. You'll hear a song where like a guy starts by saying that he wakes up at 6 to like clean the stalls and his head is pounding from a hangover. Like, well, hey, that's reality. Like the dude went out and drank beer and he still has to get up and muck the stalls.
Yeah, I mean, the farmer kids that we grew up with would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work for 3 hours before going to school. Okay. And this is not 1892. Okay. This is like
what you have to do.
1997. They would get up at 5 and work for 3 hours and then go to school and then go home and work until it got dark.
Yes. And even my dad did this until, like 10 years ago. He would be up at 4:30. And it didn't matter whether it was June or January. It's like, no, you actually have a significant part of the day before the sun is up because there's all this stuff, these obligations that have to happen. And you can't take a day off. You cannot do it. You can't say, I'm sore today and I'm tired today. And because of that, all of these animals don't get to eat. Like, no, that's horrible. No, you can't in good conscience do that. And so you have to drag your ass out of bed feeling absolutely awful and, grab the hay, muck the stalls, do all of that stuff. These people don't know how to live. And I know that that's such a reductionist conclusion with all of this stuff, but that's how I feel. I look at something like this and I look at all sorts of things like this on Twitter, particularly political, minded things on both sides. So again, this is not a value judgment. Left and right are equally idiotic about this. They're both doing it wrong. And I look at it and I think whoever just posted this has no idea how to live. I am not the best in life. I constantly screw up. I've made idiotic decisions. I'm not a wealthy retiree because I've been such a success. It's not that I'm amazing, but I know they suck.
Well, how could you possibly figure out how to live when you don't know how anything works? That's what it is to me. It's like, This is a gigantic red flag. It is a huge litmus test. It's the canary in the coal mine of just being completely oblivious to how anything works. It's like, holy cow, like, congratulations on making it this far with having just no understanding about any of reality. And you can do it. And that's the point of this podcast. It's like so many people can now, be healthy and thriving and not know how any of it works. And I also want to really quickly sort of rebut anyone who might be thinking that it's expensive. It would be like expensive to live. Like land is expensive. So it'd be like really expensive today to go like buy a plot of land and like build your own house.
Homestead. Yeah.
To homestead. Yeah. And the answer to that is no, it's not at all. No. It might be if you live in California and you want to buy a plot of land in like California.
Yeah.
If you want to buy an expensive plot of land in upstate New York or something. Okay. No, but the whole part of going west on the Oregon Trail and like living a prairie life is you go to where there are no people and the land is cheap and you make it your own. And you can still do that today. You could go to Alaska You know how many people are in Alaska?
Yeah.
Like 7.
7,
And it's huge.
Yeah, and that's just because somebody had a baby last week. It was 6, and now it's 7.
Yeah. Or even, I know that Montana has had an influx of people in recent years, especially since COVID. But still, there are still plenty of areas in the West that are just, I mean, holy cow! Anybody listening to this?
There are 1 million people in Montana.
Yeah,
that's a little over 1 million people.
Even Texas too.
North Dakota,
Texas has had a huge flood and influx of people.
Yeah.
But anyone who has driven through Texas will tell you,
oh my God,
it's huge and there's nobody around. Like, you can still get a bunch of land in places for really cheap. Why? Because it's in the middle of nowhere. And no one wants to live there and turn it into anything. But you can do that, which is what these people did 100, 200 years ago.
Right. And it's not just Texas and Montana and North Dakota. It's not just that. If you look at a map of Europe is very big, right? But a lot of countries in it are awfully sizable. You can get a really good sense of this with the Ukraine stuff now. Ukraine is quite large. It's a really big space, which is why it was agriculturally minded, because it was great for farming. And most people live in the cities. It's just like here, where, I don't know, it's like 85% of the population in the U.S. lives in an urban environment. Well, the U.S. is giant. Mexico is giant. Canada is giant. Russia, which is probably not the best place to live right now, is huge. As it gets colder, like if you think of Siberia, it's like, I'm trying to think of a valid percentage of the land there that is occupied, and it has to be 99.9% open.
Same with Canada.
There is Canada, yeah.
Canada is like 5. It's like 5 cities. The whole country,
Yes.
like everyone lives in like 5 cities in Canada. If you look up a population density map of Canada, and it will blow your mind. It will blow your mind.
And even India. Most of India is not really occupied. So unless it's a really specific small country it really is just not that big and has a lot of people, and they do exist. The equivalent in the U.S. is New Jersey, which is tiny. But even in New Jersey, I've talked to Dan about this, that there are huge stretches of open nothing in New Jersey. The Pine Barrens are really big. James Rolfe talked about this, about going to, investigate the mystery kind of thing in the Barrens. And so even when you think of like what part of the earth is just concrete nothing, you're like, yeah, okay, New Jersey. And even that is full of open space. It may not be as cheap, but the point here is that
it's mostly
there's room
farmland.
to do everything you want.
People don't know that
it's
about
mostly
Jersey.
Farmland.
New Jersey is mostly farms. No one knows that about New Jersey.
Yeah, as is the state of New York. It's open land. It is open land with some smallish cities that used to be connected by a canal. I have just described, throw in New York City and its metro area, all the people who commute, and I have described 95% of the population of one of the biggest states in the United States, and they take up like 5% of the space. So these opportunities are absolutely everywhere. And you just have to understand that this is how this slice of reality works. You have to know how these things work to navigate them in a way that is not idiotic. And it is more than just memes. It's more than just your stupid Twitter feed. Yeah, you can be an idiot on Twitter and there are no real repercussions, but you have to live your life in such a way that you're not an idiot. Well, step 1 to that is the thing that Kevin said, that you have to know how these things work.
Well, okay, and we'll wrap up on this, but I think kind of the overarching thing that you essentially summed up that I want to say is the what's the point? What's the point of understanding? The point of understanding is that it will help you in so many ways, in terms of your attitude, how you react to things. So many of the people that I see really struggling in their lives, really upset about things, outraged about things, like
Anxious.
truly having a hard
Stressed.
time with depression and anxiety and things like that, they're upset and sad about things that they're just wrong about,
Yes.
which is so, it breaks my heart over and over again seeing this, because I'm like, geez, you think your life is terrible because of a thing that you just misunderstand entirely. And
I
just
agree with that.
getting
Yeah.
some sort of grip on reality would really do a lot to help you dig out of that hole. It would really help align your understanding of yourself and your surroundings if you just got a freaking clue. Just got
It's
a
keeping
clue.
you from being happy.
It's
Keeping a lot of people
preventing
from
them.
being happy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's not to say
Yeah.
it's a panacea. It's not a magic pill that you just swallow and now all of a sudden everything is gumdrops and rainbows. No, it's not that.
Right.
But
There are a lot of problems with swallowing the red pill. When you think of that red pill and blue pill thing in the Matrix, that knowledge comes at its own cost. It's actually really bad not to be ignorant sometimes. There's a tremendous burden that comes with knowing a lot of these things. So no, it's not all amazing, and that's important to say. We're not pretending like it is, but you really can't. You don't have a shot at being happy if there's a total misunderstanding. You just don't know how to navigate anything, and you're just not going to be a happy person.
yeah, it's really, as so I empathize deeply with these people because I understand why they're upset. Like I understand why they think life is not fair and all of these things, which is just an ever growing number of people. And it's not their fault either. That's the other thing. It's not their fault at all. Like no one is. Well, first of all, we're growing up in a very strange environment in which, like we said earlier, there are so many things that you can do without providing much value and receive without providing much value to people, which was impossible for most of history. So that's like a really weird environment to grow up in. But more importantly, no one's talking about it. No one's teaching them. I mean, anecdotally, real quick, I did want to mention the immersion week thing that we did when we were kids, where we had an opportunity that, looking back, I feel like really grateful for, in which in Cooperstown, New York, there's a like a living museum called the Farmers Museum, and when we were kids, we would get to go there for 1 week. What, in like 6th grade?
As part of school.
7th grade? Eighth grade. Okay. Yeah. This is why, well documented terrible memory on my part. So I apologize. So 8th grade. And you would go there, and the whole point of going there was to experience what life was like in the 1800s and say, okay, would you like some toast? Okay, there are no toasters. That's not a thing. If you would like some toasted bread, well, first of all, you have to make the bread. And before that, you have to, like mill the flour and all of that stuff and
grind it down. Yeah.
Grind down the flour and then add the water and blah, 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 to the point where you make this bland, horrible bread that no one would want to eat today. It tastes like dense newspaper.
Pretty much, yeah.
That you bake yourself, slice it up. And if you'd like some toast, then sure, you have to stick it in some like blacksmith created cage, like bread slice
like an iron
cage.
Yes, on a big stick.
On a stick that you put over a fire that's in your house. And that's your toast. And so you're basically like, making s'mores in your house. But instead
it's laborious and time consuming, and the result isn't very good.
And the result sucks. It tastes awful.
Sucks. I by the way, do you remember what your job was for that week?
No.
When you did it?
No.
I remember mine. We had to whitewash a cellar. So this gloopy liquid just slopping on the stone walls of a cellar. And so you would go there in the morning and spend half the day in this cellar with this really bad paintbrush kind of thing, just slopping liquid on cold stone walls, because that's what you had to do, sort of like a coat of protection. It was whitewashing. that helped with water going in and out of the place. And that was it. Boss Threads just posted one of the toast machines in the episode chat.
Sweet.
It looks like a terrible rake made out of metal. But this is the last thing that I will say, but I want to tie it into what we were talking about before we hit record with some of the people who came into the episode chat. And I want to throw a bone to future conversations. We were talking about AI. What sort of concepts in worldviews do you think AI is going to contain? It's going to be the same kind of horseshit that makes these memes, because it's drawing from the same kind of information that makes people think these things.
Right.
So there is going to be a huge gulf between reality, what people can actually know about the world, and the things that AI is going to work with. AI cannot, at least for some time, have the judgment to take a meme like that and then say, but actually, and list all the things that we did.
Mm-hmm.
No, it can construct memes like that and leave it at that. So we were talking about, what it would be like for people like filmmakers, because we were talking, Dan was here, and like I said, he just graduated from film school. And I was talking about writing. And I used an example of a writer who I think can be completely and totally replaced, and no one will even notice he's gone. All of those efforts are going to work on the information that leads to these misunderstandings. And the world that they're going to operate in is going to be just as misunderstood and almost fictional as the stuff that we're talking about here. So recognizing reality and figuring out how to navigate that is going to be massively important and useful in terms of not being replaced, in terms of being original.
Right.
On the creative side, this is going to be a big, big deal in the next few years.
Right. And here's the other thing I really wanted to say to wrap this up, to give people like a bit of a hope about this. If you're listening to this podcast and you come to these understandings, in the past, okay, everyone knew how reality worked because everyone was playing the same game, okay? Right, so everyone knew that you had to, grow your own food, and you had to mill it, and you had to, bake the bread, and you had to cut the wood, and everybody knew that. Everybody was playing that same game. What's weird now is there are really different games being played by different people, and a lot of people do not know the rules of the game anymore. They just don't. They don't even know what game they're in. They simply don't. Like, you are going to have, I think, probably majority people, okay, will have no clue what game they're in, what game they're playing. If you understand...
It is hard to know. To be fair, it is hard to know sometimes. Most of the time.
It is. It's really hard. Yeah. It's really hard to know. And no one's talking about it. So that is to say, if you do know that, oh my gosh, are you already just in an elite group, a small elite group of people that even know what game they're in and what is being played and what the rules are and how it works and how it doesn't work. This is going to be a small minority of people.
That's right. If you want to be in the 1%, you don't have to make $3 million a year. You just have to know this. You just have to know what game you're playing and the basic rules of it. And then automatically, that's how elite you are. I think you're exactly right about that, Kevin.
Yeah, you have
that's a good way to put it.
You've already cut to the front of the line of the game, right. Simply because you know what it is. Yeah.
You've got some cheat codes. You may not have unlimited lives, but you've got the Konami code, and that's a pretty big upgrade.
Yes, Game Genie is in your butt crack. Let's just leave it at that, okay? And yes. Whether you beat the game or not with it is up to you from there. All right, we got to go. We'll be back next week. I want to talk more about this AI stuff, so maybe we'll talk about that next week. As always, thanks to our patrons for hanging out with us. It's great to see all of you, and thanks for sharing images and jokes in the chat. If you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown. We are a Patreon-funded podcast. So if you've been listening for a long time, you want to help it continue, consider joining the Patreon. We would love to have you. And also the Discord. We'd love to have you there as well. All right, we're out of here. See you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week, and the recent support has been amazing. Sidpoke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezergood, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. Thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Farrakhan, Jen Mefasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Peddler, Risebread, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Videoger. And a tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders: Atrocious Guff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight, Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, Jelksies, and of course, Trevstead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer-editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yoshua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it. And a special thanks to Main Gear for powering all of our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.